Hey guys, what's going on? It's MajiinBae. Welcome back to the channel. Today is seasonals. If you're not super involved in the competitive scene, that you may not know that. But yeah, today is seasonals. I'm going to be playing about 2 hours after this video goes live is when seasonals will start for me. You could come hang out, check it out. I will be streaming it on Twitch over at MajiinBae LOR. Link in the description if you want to come hang out, say hi, support me, and all that. So this video is a bit different. Obviously, you probably figured that out by the thumbnail and the title and all that. But I'm not going to be playing a deck today. I'm just going to I'm going to go over the 3 decks I chose for seasonals and talk about the reasoning I have for picking them. So I wanted to make this video to help people who maybe haven't had a lot of tournament experience. Maybe they can see the thought that goes into building a lineup. I know as a Magic the Gathering veteran, the concept of bringing a lineup of decks instead of just one deck was a bit foreign to me and a little intimidating. It was tough to like wrap my head around what I was supposed to think about. So without further ado, the 3 decks I'm bringing are Deep, Zoe Lee Sin with Scattered Pod, and Turbo Thralls. If that's all you're here for, you just want to see the 3 decks I'm bringing, you can click off now if you want to. But yeah, let's go into why I picked these decks. So I always start with what do I expect to see the most in seasonals, and that can be tough because it is open format. There's a lot of people, and you're gonna see a lot of nonsense, frankly, in these open seasonal rounds. There's 1,000 people playing. A lot of them qualified via gauntlet or by just sneaking in at the 700th ish rank in Masters. So you're gonna see a lot of stuff you're not really expecting. There's gonna be a lot of like tier 2, tier 3 non-meta strategies. So I like to pick decks that do powerful things. I'm known to pick just the best decks and just play them well. That's kind of my motto, is I just want to play decks at 50-50 everything. They're good into a lot of things, and I want to play them better than you. That sounds arrogant, but like that's my game plan. I just want to be very good with what's already good. I want to let the power level of the decks do a lot of the heavy lifting for me, and let my expertise with the decks kind of finish the job. This seasonal, I'm doing something a little different. I'm playing a little bit more off-meta stuff. I expect the most popular decks to be Sivir decks, like Akshan Sivir, the Ionia Shurima builds. And then after that, I expect it to be the mid-rangey decks, things like Plunder, Draven Ezreal, TF Swain, even possibly like Viego, all those kind of decks I expect to be more popular. So my game plan going in was, okay, if I ignore Sivir, if I ban Sivir, or the Aurelia Shurima, just auto-ban Aurelia Shurima, Ionia Shurima. If I auto-ban Ionia Shurima, oh, my nightlight kicked on. That's why my lighting got all weird. Sorry about that. So, yeah, if I ban Ionia Shurima out the gate, and I want to beat mid-range decks, what does that leave me? What decks does that open up? And immediately the first thing I thought of was Deep. Deep is kind of a mid-range crusher. It just goes bigger than you, and I've had a lot of experience with Deep this season, so really was interested in playing that first and foremost. Very good matchups into TF Swain, Draven Ezreal, crushes Plunder. Yeah, not a dog to anything. Like it has some bad matchups, right? Like Aurelia Azir is a bad matchup, Sivir's a bad matchup. I plan on banning those, but like even its worst matchups, like you could still win. It's not an auto loss, and I really like that. So Deep is the number 1 pick. Second pick is Lee. I have made a career of Zoe Lee, basically. I hit rank 1 with Zoe Lee multiple times. I won seasonals with Zoe Lee. I've top 32'd multiple seasonals with Zoe Lee. Yeah, just it's probably my best deck. I really like this new Scattered Pod version. I feel like it adds a lot of oomph to the top end of the deck. An alternate win con outside of Lee Sin is very helpful. The deck very much needed that. Now that's on the 6 Eye of the Dragon package. Yeah, just a huge fan of the deck. And all its bad matchups are essentially Ionia Shurima. There's a couple outside of it, like Zed Lulu's tough. That's a common theme with my lineup. Zed Lulu's a tough one. But outside of like the Sivir decks and the Ionia Shurima decks, Lee Sin feels favored. He feels very good. So that's a quick addition to the lineup. And then I wanted to look at basically what my lineup does well there. It's always easy to pick the first 2 decks, right? The third one is where everybody struggles. So I wanted to look at what my lineup does well and what it doesn't do well. And I wanted to capitalize on the strengths. Normally I look to shore up the weaknesses, but in this seasonal, I'm going to go hard with my meta read and see see what happens essentially. I've top 32 3 seasonals. I've won one. I'm qualified for Worlds. There's new like Worlds is in a month, right? Like I can kind of get a little experimental with this seasonal and not feel too bad if it doesn't go fantastic. Not that I expect to do poorly. I don't. I wouldn't bring this lineup if I didn't expect to do well. But I wanted to change the formula a bit and see how it worked. So I looked at our lineup. We have Lee and Deep so far, and I said, okay, like, what other things do I expect to see that I don't want to ban that I want to do well into? And immediately I thought of the Shen decks, and I thought of Anivia. Basically, I wanted to continue beating these mid-range decks, Shen being another one I expect to be a lot of people's third pick. And then Anivia was seeing a lot of popularity, huge uptick, because Anivia doesn't need to ban Sivir, it does very well to Draven Ezreal, and it crushes aggro decks. Beats a lot of the mid-range decks too, very hard. So I wanted a third deck that essentially locked my opponent out of winning with Anivia. That was my idea, was like, okay, if my opponent shows up with Anivia, and all three of my decks are very good against Anivia, they're going to have a hard time beating me. Even if they beat me with their other deck, they still have to squeeze through Anivia, right? And if I can just play into 2-0 Anivia, my matchup gets a lot easier. So that narrowed it down a lot. Tom Soraka was the first one that came to mind. And I really like playing Tom Rock. Anyone who's been watching me for a long time knows I really enjoy that deck. But the problem with that is that it opened up a glaring weakness to Draven Ezreal, which the rest of my lineup, Deep and Lee, do very well into. So when I was scrimming with Tom Rocca in the third deck slot, what was happening is I would crush Draven Ezreal with one deck, and then it would squeak out against Tom Rocca because it's just such a rough matchup for me. And I didn't want that. So I needed the third deck to at least be even into Draven Ezreal and still be favored against the other decks I was looking at targeting. So Tom Rocca wasn't it. I cut that. I tried the Akshan Infinite Eggs deck, and while I very much enjoy it, I don't think it's quite there. Akshan Sivir beats Draven Ezreal, has a lot of good matchups into some of the mid-rangey decks, but not very good against Nivea, not very good against Plunder. A lot of the TF decks beat it up pretty hard, so I had to look in other directions. I spent a lot of time on the Mobalytics Metastats page, which I highly recommend, by the way, if you haven't tried that out. Looking at different matchup data and just seeing, essentially just like, I wanted to like look at the broad stats, find the decks that work for what I need, the few decks, and then try them all out and see which one I like most. And I stumbled on Turbo Thralls, which isn't something we see very much anymore. My most recent video, yesterday's, is Turbo Thralls, by the way, playing pretty much this list, maybe a card or two different, but yeah, and this is going to be the third deck for seasonals. About a 50-50 against Ezreal Draven, and just crushes mid-range decks. It just does more powerful things than you. It just cranks out 8/8 overwhelms, and that's really tough to deal with when you have a bunch of Make It Rains and stuff, right? So I really like what it does. It also very much suffers against Aurelia Azir. The Sivir decks, like, these are the decks you want to ban anyway, which is consistent with what the rest of our lineup wants to do. It wants to ban the Ionia Shreema lists. So it has the same weakness, all three decks, making that very simple ban pick, while having the same strengths. And I love the idea of a targeting lineup. But there are weaknesses. There are pros and cons, right? The pros are, if you show up with a Nivea, I'm going to destroy you. But the cons are that if you show up with triple aggro, you're going to crush me. Like, I'm all of a sudden very weak. I don't have 3 bans. I can't ban your whole lineup. I get 1. So if you show up with, the thing I'm worried about most, actually, is Aurelia Azir, Zed Lulu, and Akshan Sivir Demacia. That's the lineup I'm most scared of, because that's 3 decks I really don't want to go up against, all slapped in one lineup. So yeah, I am opening up myself to some serious weaknesses here, but the majority of lineups in seasonals are kind of disorganized, I would say. I think it changes once you get to top 32. People come with a clear plan, but a lot of times you just get 3 decks that people like to play and know how to play and have the cards for. And I think this lineup will be able to target that well. And if it doesn't, then oh well, lesson learned. But I have a lot of faith in this lineup, and I'm really excited to play it. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. And you know what? If the worst happens and I 0-4 or whatever and drop, I have the Riot Grand Prix on Sunday to play some really exciting stuff anyway. But yeah, that's basically my thought process that went into my lineup. Sorry for the very long, rambly video, but I'm hoping for those of you who are looking to break into the tournament scene or even just interested in how it worked, hopefully I could shed some light on the process and how it all comes together. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if like this kind of stuff is more what you would like to see. I do plan on pausing the daily normal videos. There's still gonna be daily videos, but they'll be different for the next couple days. I'm gonna be posting the matches for seasonals, maybe some react videos to the new trailers and stuff, and then the daily deck tech type videos will continue right after that, so don't worry. But yeah, thanks for coming by, everybody. Like I said, gonna be streaming seasonals on Twitch starting at about 10 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, come hang out, say hi, make fun of my deck choice, whatever you want to do. I'll see you guys next time.